Welcome to the Audible. I'm your host, Joshua Clowen, changing the call every Wednesday night here. And this week, Friday night, live on Bucs Report. We've got a great show for you tonight, action-packed, with special guest Kyle Berger of ABC Action Sports News. But before that, let's announce this week's prize. We've got a Buccaneers prize pack here. It's got a variety of things, a clear stadium fanny pack you can use in the stadium if there's fans in the stands, a couple bottle openers, one with my logo, one Buccaneers. We've got some Buccaneers pins and a koozie as well and some sunglasses. We'll be giving that away this week. Remember to either share the feed on Facebook, retweet on Twitter, or comment like on YouTube. That way we can see who it is. And if you're going to share on Facebook, make sure you have your settings public. That way, we can see who actually shared it. We'll announce the winner of the Doug Martin 8x10 a little bit later in the show. But let's dive right into the kickoff. It's presented to you by Wolf the Barber, located at Almighty Cuts in Brandon, Florida. Call 508-718-7865 to schedule your appointment and receive $5 off your first cut using the code WordBuckReport. Check them out at Wolf the Barber on Facebook. So before we get into the Tampa Bay Bucs news, we've got some breaking news in the NFL. It was tweeted out earlier by Adam Schefter and a multitude of other people. It looks like the NFLPA and the NFL have reached an agreement on safety protocols, financial terms, and such for the season. This is huge news because this is something that has been lingering over the NFL and NFLPA. We've seen the players we want to play, but we want to know that we're going to be safe. We want to know that our finances aren't going to be hit. So some of the facts that have just come out around it, there will be no impact on the 2020 salary cap. It will remain at $198 million. The cap will not go any lower than $175 next year, 2021, but it can go higher if revenues come in better than expected. Some other news on there is potential loss of revenues will be spread out between 4 years from now until 2024. And also, once this official agreement is signed on Monday, because that's when most likely the players will be able to report and get into office, they'll have 7 days whether they want to opt out or not. That means, veterans opt out, players who have underlying health conditions can opt out. So they'll have 7 days from that date. So really 10 days if you count today, but 7 days once it's officially signed. Part of the opt-out is if you are a high-risk player, have diabetes, underlying health conditions, you'll get $355,000 stipend for the year. If you are voluntary opting out, you'll get $150,000 salary advance with no accrued or credited season. But if you are a high risk, you'll get that accrued and credited season. So a player like Donovan Smith, who could possibly opt out, he'll get $150,000 salary advance that he'd have to pay back next year, but he will not get an accrued season or a credited season. I'm not sure what that means about his contract, whether it will total next season and come back at the same price, or how that will all work out. I think there's some things behind the scenes they're still working out. But if a player did have an underlying health condition, say a diabetes, and they weren't, comfortable playing the season, they could opt out, still get that accrued season, plus get that $350,000 stipend. So that's, some things that have came out along that. Other things, if one of the things players pushed for, if any club personnel, players, staff, whatever, if they, subject themselves to risky behaviors that could expose themselves or others to COVID-19, there will be discipline. We're not sure, maybe fines, suspensions. We'll have to see how that works. But that's just some things. And more details are going to come out through the woodwork as this progresses and as this comes out. Roger Goodell put out a statement. The NFL Players Association put out a statement. It is something they were on a conference call today, and they agreed to it. I believe there was 4 people who voted against it, so it was 28-4 against. Things like that will start coming out the more we dive into it. But it's good news because without something like that, football was in jeopardy. We talked about the COVID-19 precautions with training camp and, the testing and things like that were huge on players' minds. But this was another part, the financial part. What would happen if a player opted out? What would happen with the salary cap? Would it go down? Would it go down immediately this year? Because then you'd have teams scrambling. Veterans would be cut left and right to try to get under that cap if they were talking about cutting it by $10 million. So these are things that, were on players' minds, and now they seem to be settled and agreed upon. So with that, let's jump right into the kickoff, talking about Tampa Bay Bucs top stories around there. Yesterday, as we saw it, Tom Brady and the other rookies, quarterbacks and injured players all reported to one Buc place. They didn't enter the facility, but they did enter a trailer where they were tested one at a time. What that test pretty much is, they tested yesterday. They'll come back again on Sunday and take a second test. And if both tests come back negative, then they'll be able to report Monday. Training camp will, as usual, start for them. But why they did that was because if there was a possibility that one of the players were incubating the virus, they wanted to be able to put enough distance in between the first and second test to really make sure there was no, false negatives or anything, or false positives. They wanted to ensure their safety. So once, let's say everyone passes their test clean and clear on Sunday, then the report Monday after 24 hours is up after the testing. And they will then start doing their daily testing going from there. So it was good to see. Obviously, we saw Tom Brady rolling up to One Buck Place, and we'll show that video a little bit later in the show, along with our special guest who actually shot that video. But it was nice to see that. I know that, for a fact, Reed Sinet, Divinity, Michael Divinity Jr., Javon Hagan all showed up Wednesday in preparation for that Thursday test. So they're all here at a local hotel, practicing social distancing, being safe, and just making sure that they're quarantining themselves until these test results come back before they start getting around each other. Also, what happened on Wednesday, I touched on it briefly at the beginning of the show before we had technical difficulties, but Tyler Johnson, we heard, was the first player to agree to terms, followed by Khalil Davis and then Raymond Calais. But on Wednesday, they locked up the rest of their draft picks. So everyone's, under agreement. Obviously, they can't sign anything until they get into the building Monday with a hopefully, negative test for all of them. They'll come into the building, they'll sign their contracts, and they'll be, officially part of this Buccaneers team, which is something that was kind of a formality we knew was going to happen. The rookie contracts aren't like they were before. They're all pretty much set in stone and slotted at a certain rate. So there's no fluctuation real between, numbers. Sometimes it happens with a quarterback. If, he thinks he should be drafted somewhere else, there might be a compromise that comes between teams. But on this, particular situation where there were no quarterbacks drafted, everyone was pretty much drafted in the slot or around the slot they were expected to go in. There were no, extenuating circumstances. It was pretty cut and dry. I think they waited so long just to give them the flexibility to sign a player that may have come available that they didn't think would have, and be able to restructure and move around money. But that didn't happen. So everyone's under agreement. They'll be signed and they'll be in the building as soon as they can be, hopefully with negative testing. What else happened this week? Monday, there were player workouts continued. Obviously, Tom Brady was not a part of them. But, there were workouts with a group of 10 players. Kevin O'Donnell of Fox Sports announced that. It was headlined by Tristan Wirfs, first-round draft pick, and Dario Agungwale. There was also Tanner Hudson, Justin Watson, Anthony Nelson, Jack Cicci, and Bryant Mitchell, to name a few. Bryant Mitchell actually got on there and spoke that, it was kind of weird to see the helicopters above when they were practicing at the high school with Tom Brady there. It was like an eye in the sky, but it didn't affect them as much, during practice. And it's nice to see that these players are taking the initiative to continue to work out, even when you don't have a Tom Brady, leading a group, that these group of players decide to get together, work out, and, just try to get better and get chemistry with each other. You can kind of see that Tom Brady effect kind of taking hold of this team, just putting in the effort and the time and the consistency to get better. And they know it's at stake this year. So it's going to be awesome to see them finally in training camp when everything starts to get rolling. There's a bunch of different rules for training camp. We'll get into that a little bit later as well. In other news, the Bucs, they recently added former NFL and Duke quarterback Thad Lewis to the coaching staff. He'll be working with the quarterbacks. He was brought in with the Bill Walsh fellow program. Brings in coaches that or players that want to be coaches, and gives them an opportunity to try it out, see if it works for them, see if it fits. And then, obviously coming in and learning under, Byron Leftwich, who used to be a quarterback, who's now the offensive coordinator, or Bruce Arians, who, we know is a quarterback whisperer, has worked with some of the best in the league over time. So having him come in here and kind of learn and pick their brain will be beneficial for him. And having another quarterback in the meeting rooms, along with obviously Tom Brady, Reed Sinet, Brian Gabbert, Brian Griffin, and the offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich, is just going to help the younger guys and help these guys with their experience. So it's nice to see them brought someone on like that. Other reports out there, Raymond James, it's not official. It's just been reported. Raymond James will operate at 25% capacity. We'll have to see what goes on with that. It's been thrown out there. We're not sure if that's going to happen. It looks like it falls in line with most of what the other stadiums are doing. So we'll have to see what actually happens once the Buccaneers announce what they're going to do. Being a season ticket holder, I've heard somewhat of the same. Again, it's not official. We'll have to figure that all out once the time comes. OJ Howard, he was on the NFL Network the other day talking about this team and the offense and what he expects. I don't know if we remember Janoris Jenkins' comments a couple weeks back where, he pretty much said the Bucs are a great team on paper. But we really expected that coming from these other players around the league. But he pretty much said, put us on paper, we're one of the best in the league, if not the best offenses in the league. You have to, respect him and believe that, because if you look at the numbers, and I'll get to some of the numbers coming up here in a minute, that this team is just it's stacked at every position: wide receiver, tight end, running backs. If everything works out, they have the offensive line tools. The middle of that line is phenomenal. We're really hoping on those bookend tight ends and obviously the quarterback. So you have to take what he says and really believe it, and he believes it, and that's going to be tremendous for this team going forward. As for what he's been doing working out wise, he's been working out in the garage in Alabama, lifting, working with teammates when he can. He actually flew back for one of those practices with Tom Brady. And, he said, working with Tom Brady, it's as advertised. It's exactly what you expect. The leadership that he has and the demand he has for you to get better and continue to grow as players and as a team is just, what he expected and what he got. Learning and working with Gronk was amazing for him. He said the opportunity he was very thankful for it. To learn so much from him, his physical play, his yak, his run after the catch, his ability to go down the seam, run routes, all those things are just going to be beneficial for a player like OJ Howard. He's not the same caliber as player as Gronkowski, but he's got some of the same skill sets. He can block, he can catch. He's a very dynamic player, can line up inside, outside. So having a player like Gronk to learn from is just going to be beneficial for him in so many different ways. So excited to see how that goes. And he also talked about the national games and the expectations. He just says we have these expectations, and we know we do when we have to rise to that level. And as for the primetime games, he's happy for guys like Levante David, who have been, Mike Evans, who have been out of the limelight, and hopefully we'll get the recognition that I know we all as fans and as reporters hope that Levante David gets, because the lack of recognition and credibility is unreal for him. So Pro Football Talk had their preseason rankings come out, and they had the Bucs at 6. I don't really, I don't have a problem with that spot, but the part that kind of made me second guess it was they have the Patriots at 5. And I know it's Bill Belichick, and in Bill they trust, and, they'll find a way. They brought in Cam Newton, but, seeing what they've lost on that defense and, what they have on offense, I think that's a little bit too high for them. It is what it is. It's a preseason ranking. I'm not going to take too much stock into it, but I just thought that was interesting as well. Today, we got our first glimpse at some of the banners put up outside of Raymond James Stadium. They had Mike Evans and Tom Brady on one, Levante David and Chris Godwin on the other. More going up. It's nice to see them. It means football's here. They're getting ready for it. Definitely excited about that, and to see what happens with that stadium, how they transform it for this special year that we're about to embark on. Donovan Smith, congratulations to him. He had his baby today. Beautiful little girl. So happy for him. Hopefully he decides to opt in, but again, that's something that he's weighing in the air, whether he's going to opt in or opt out. So that's something to watch out for. Pro Football Focus, they had a lot of stats here. I'm going to run through them real quick because they're all, show how good this team was on offense and defense. So one of the things was they had the highest red zone defense, one of the highest red zone defensive grades in the league last year at a third rated. They had Levante David as his second best in coverage grades of last year. And that's against safeties, that's against cornerbacks. He finished second overall against, likes of Harrison Smith and players like Justin Simmons and players like that. Vita Vea had 56 pressures. That was good for second amongst the defensive linemen last year. Chris Godwin, I mean, the hate for Chris Godwin is mind-boggling for me. He was one of the leaders in yak per reception. He was ranked 4th. with 6.7 yards. And he was ranked second in the lowest drop percentage, 1.1 with 1 out of 87 catchable balls dropped. First place, I mean, I'm pretty sure anyone who follows football, Larry Fitzgerald was first with 0 out of 90. The guy is just a catching machine. But last thing before I move on to the 4-point stance, I just want to shout out the newest member of Bucs Report team, Loose Cannons. They had Ryan Jensen on their podcast the other day, and he told a funny story about Tom Brady and how Tom Brady likes, he likes baby powder and a towel, shoved down their rear end of his centers so they don't sweat too much on him. I thought that was very funny. If you have a moment, make sure you check out the Loose Cannons podcast. And also, big welcome to the Bucs UK. They're another podcast. Obviously, they're out of the UK, and they joined on. So, excited to have them part of the team as well. And make sure you check them out on YouTube as well. So let's jump into the 4-point stance. That's brought to you by Pewter Plumbing. Pewter Plumbing, let them tackle all of your plumbing needs. They're state certified, serving Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco counties. Call 813-478-9150 for a free estimate. So we have our first question this week from Matt Probus on Facebook. He says, "Why does Chris Godwin get so little respect?" I could do a whole show on Chris Godwin and the respect that he gets. I mean, you look at the Madden grades, he's 87. You look at some of these rankings of players. Chris Sims did his top 10 on Pro Football Talk, and he didn't even have him in the top 10. He had Evans at 4, which is pretty solid. You look around the league. You see these rankings coming out of wide receivers, and Chris Godwin is somehow nowhere to be found. I don't understand it. I just read off some of his stats. I read off some stats last week. The guy is just a machine, a catching machine. He catches the balls, doesn't really drop them, when they're thrown to him in a good vicinity. I bring it back to that Saints game where he caught the ball and then the yak running through 2 defenders to get into the touchdown. The Atlanta game, that one-handed catch where you just look at him and you're like, how did he catch that? The guy just gets it done. He's progressed, through the years. If you're a fantasy player, you obviously know how instrumental he was probably to a run to the championship for you last year, as he was for me. I don't see why he's getting overlooked. I know there's some good players, but when you see players like Stephon Diggs and Amari Cooper and Cortland Sutton, who is on Chris Sims' list as a number 10, I see the potential in these players, and I see what they do, but I just don't understand how you can put them ahead of Chris Godwin. This guy just does it all, inside, outside, predominantly inside, but he can line up outside and still make plays for you. And then with Tom Brady coming in, we know that he has an affinity for the slot wide receiver. You look at some of the players he's had in the past: Troy Brown, Wes Welker, currently last year, Julian Edelman, over 1,000 yards, 100 yards. I think Chris Godwin's going to have the most receptions and most yards on this team. And it's not even going to be close. I just think he's going to do the damage and run the routes that Tom likes. And he's just going to be a security blanket for him underneath, throwing it to him, using that yards after catch, that 6.7, fourth in the league yards after catch rating, and make big plays for you. And he's going to chunk up the yards, and he's going to chunk up the catches, and he's going to has the most receptions and the most yards on this team. All right, number 2 comes from Ron McClary from Facebook. He goes, "What are your thoughts on second-round safety Antoine Winfield? What can he bring to the secondary?" I love this draft as a whole. You go up there and you get Tristan Wirfs. You bring in a guy like Keyshawn Vaughn in the 3rd round, who has potential to be, an all-world back. You use your 4th-round pick on essentially Rob Gronkowski. I mean, that's a no-brainer. And then some of the guys you drafted later, Tyler Johnson in the 5th, was like, why was he still there? Great players should come in and compete for that wide receiver 3 spot right away. You have a guy like Khalil Davis with the size and the speed that he possesses is just unnatural, uncanny. You have Chappelle Russell, who looks like he can possibly be a solid inside-outside linebacker, definitely play some special teams. And Raymond Calais in the late round, he's a burner. He returned 99 kickoffs for a 25-yard average with 2 touchdowns. So I love the draft as a whole. But if you want to talk about Antoine Winfield in the 2nd round, many people had a 1st-round draft pick on him. So I was ecstatic that they got him. And I was more than happy that they passed on a player like J.K. Dobbins for him. This guy is going to be all over the field. He's going to be able to come in the box, drop into coverage. He can play some linebacker duties if you need, inside, outside slot. He just does everything. He's a man all over the field. He's got that pedigree from his father, Antoine Winfield. You got to know that they've been breaking down film and watching film and studying the playbook together. So he definitely knows, he's going to have a little bit more of an edge than maybe some of these other players coming in. I'm excited to see him. And, what can he bring? I just pretty much explained to you what he brings to the secondary. I think he'll be in his rookie year, maybe not right away, but I think he'll be that field general in the secondary, making the secondary calls, making sure everyone's in place. Because you have to remember, this is a very young secondary. We're talking about second year, third year players. And I just think that, with his pedigree and with his, the way he's been brought up, I think he'll catch on to the defense very quickly, and he'll be an instrumental part. So real quick, I'm going to just remind you guys that if you want to get entered in this Bucks prize pack this week, make sure you retweet on Twitter, comment, like on YouTube, and then if you're on Facebook, make sure you share it. But if you share it, make sure your settings are public. That way we can figure out who is sharing it, because we had a lot of shares last week, but some of them we couldn't see because the shares weren't public. So just make sure you're doing that. And I'm going to read one more 4-point stance. I'll finish the 4-point stance segment, and then I will announce last week's winner of the signed 8x10 by Doug Martin. So our third question comes from Samar Ali on Twitter. He says, do you think the Bucks need to bring in Devontae Freeman if he comes in cheap, or should they allow Rojo to grow and Keyshawn to develop to be the guys? This is something I've talked about in the past. I like Devontae Freeman. I think he'd be a good addition to this team, but at what cost? I mean, if you bring in Devontae Freeman, then it's obviously going to stunt Keyshawn Vaughn's growth for sure. If you don't think he's ready, maybe you go a couple weeks in training camp and you just don't think he's going to have it down in time. Maybe you revisit Devontae Freeman, let him learn from him, and still be a contributor on this offense. You see last year with Tom Brady when he was with the Patriots, he used a plethora of running backs. He used Sony Michel, Rex Burkhead. He used James White, obviously. So he likes to throw to multiple backs. You have Dari back there, but if you could bring someone in with Devontae Freeman, he's going to come in for the minimum or an incentive-laden deal. I'm not against it. I think it will kind of, stunt the growth a little bit. If Rojo struggles, I think he'd still be the main back. But if he does struggle a little bit, you could see that happening where they're like, all right, we're just going to give it over to Devontae Freeman. I wouldn't mind it. Depends on the contract, obviously, as you said. But we'll see. It's going to be, depending on price, depending on evaluation on these players and how they look in training camp, which will start in, just a week now, where veterans will report. So it's up in the air. But yeah, if he comes in cheap, I'd bring him in. And our last question on the 4-point stance comes from Josh Avaris from Facebook. He said, who do you think ends up the best fantasy player on the team? That's a good question, and I kind of answered it in my first question on the 4-point stance. I just think that Chris Godwin's going to have a monster year. Maybe not touchdown-wise. I think that maybe goes to Gronk or, Mike Evans, especially in the red zone, those big, tall receivers. I can see them lining up, 3 tight ends, 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, and just good luck stopping that package because they all have height, they all have hops, they all have red zone ability. But as far as player, I think just Chris Godwin's going to explode. You saw what he did last year. I think those numbers are just going to expand tremendously. You're talking about, catches, receptions. So still have some touchdowns, maybe 7-8 touchdowns. Let's say 1,200 yards and 110 catches. I just think he's the guy that you want to get after if you can get after him. I would take him before Mike Evans, probably at the latter end of the first round. But there's other guys I'd take. Keyshawn Vaughn, I'd take in the later rounds over Rojo. I'd take Tom Brady as a late-round quarterback. I think that he's going to have a tremendous season. I can see 2007 all over again, where he's just, running up the score at the end of games and just tossing it up deep and going for it and just, piling on that score. But I'm not sure I want to take him early. I think you can kind of wait, hold back. There's a lot of good quarterbacks this year that I feel like you can wait on. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Chris Godwin. Great question. But thanks a lot, guys, everyone that asked questions. Remember, again, next Wednesday, I'll take 4 of your questions, answer them right here live. I'm going to announce the winner of last week's drawing for the Doug Martin 8x10, the signed autographed one. I'll be sending this out probably Friday. Probably by Wednesday. I'll have that sent out. The winner is, drum roll, the winner was Christopher Cole. So congratulations, Christopher Cole. Make sure you reach out to me in direct messenger. I'll get your address and I'll ship this out to you. If you're local and you want to meet up for it, I can do that as well. But congratulations. Remember, pound that retweet button, comment, like on YouTube. And then if you're on Facebook, share, but make sure it's public so we can see who shared. Again, we had a lot of shares last week that we really couldn't see. So what I'll do right now real quick is I will read some of these comments before we break down to halftime and get our guest on. Again, thank you guys all for being here and the support. I really appreciate it. We have Dawn Allen, that's my mom, Joshua Cole Allen. Dylan, what's up, Josh? What's going on? Christopher Cole, again, congratulations, man. Hey, it doesn't matter. Hey, it doesn't matter if you're in the bubble because 2 WNBA players test positive. Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky situation there right now with everything going on. Johnny Dean, Dylan Casey, you made it. What's up, Johnny? AZ J, 8066. Yeah, boy. Stun is stun. Joshua, why are you so... Shut up, son. Nick Citro's amazing. I don't compare to him. Keith Ellis, what's up? Joshua Colan, what's going on? Keith, guy knows his stuff. Thank you. I try to. Another Bill Miller, guy knows his stuff. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Secondary will be the best in the league, no doubt in my mind. I think we'll be up there. I mean, the New England Patriots have the reigning, defensive player of the year with Stephon Gilmore, so it will be close. Godwin, top 5 wide receiver in the league. I think I agree, and I think he'll be up there next year. I mean, you got Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas because of the numbers. I don't think necessarily because of the play. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. That's my top 5. Mike top 3. I mean, there you go. I mean, you can mess around with that order a little bit, but Bill Miller gets stunning. Who will the Bucs sign in the running back free agency class of 2021? That's a loaded class, and I'm not really sure because if these guys pan out, and if Keyshawn Vaughn ends up being the starter midway through and he looks good, I think you roll with him. DZ, we the Bucs, that's right. Taylor, DZ Finesse, we taking over. Mike Stover, yay. Craig Badoof, what's up, Josh? What's going on, man? Okay, so we're gonna break it down now into the halftime. Halftime is sponsored to you by Malectronic. If you have not checked out Malectronic, I urge you to do so right now. You can see the Spaceman and the hat trick right now. The quality of the stuff is amazing. The speaker is awesome. I use it at the pool. Thing bumps. Little Rocket Man, if you're at the office, you want to listen to music, quietly while you're working. And these headphones are amazing. Noise canceling. So halftime's brought to you by Malectronic headphones and speakers. Use code BucksReport on www.shopsoundsperfect.com. It's down below as well. Shopsoundsperfect.com. Go on that site. 40% off, guys. These things are great. My buddy already bought a pair of headphones and a speaker. He uses it all the time. Thing works great. I urge you guys to do it because you know what? It sounds perfect. So definitely check that out. So halftime, we've got a lot of things to cover real quick before we get our guest on. Last Saturday dropped the training camp report dates. Rookies obviously were supposed to be the 21st. They pushed it back to the 23rd. They've already reported it in most areas. Some teams have pushed it back. Other players will report on the 28th. They'll all come in. They'll do the same process, take their test, go home, 72 hours, come back, take their test, then the daily testing will start. 20 players will be allowed in the facility at one time until the IDERs, the Infectious Disease Emergency Response Plans, are approved by the NFLPA. All teams have submitted them. Around 8 teams have already been approved. That's obviously changing by the day, probably by the hour. If you're going to go to a game and you're a fan, masks will be required. So if you're going to go there, masks are going to be required. But there will be no preseason games. So there's no preseason at all. The NFLPA says 59 COVID tests. They recently announced that it was 95. That was a mistake. It's really 59. Michael Bennett retires. Washington changed their name to the Washington Football Team. The Jets and Giants will have no fans in the stands this year. And real quick, let's just wrap it up because our guest is in the lobby. The practice squad proposed, we haven't seen this. We know the NFL has agreed to terms with the NFLPA, but there's still some other things. The practice squad will be made up of 12 to 16 players. Still deciding on that. 6 of those players proposed can be veterans. So you can have 6 veterans players on that team. So it's something that, is different than what we've seen before. So it'll be interesting to see that. I'm going to play a quick video before we get our guy Kyle Berger in here. Stay tuned, watch this, and I'll be right back with him. So we're going to kick off the third quarter with Chalk Talk, sponsored by Auction of Champions. They're a sports memorabilia auction site with weekly auctions, autographed memorabilia, and cards with no reserves. Check them out on their website at www.auctionsofchampions.com and on Facebook and Instagram. Mention Bucks Report in the How You Heard About Us section. Receive $5 off your first order. Today's guest, we already talked about it. His name is Kyle Berger. He's from ABC Action News. He's the man that shot that video yesterday. Let's bring him on here. Hey, Kyle, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, Josh? I'm actually at the Tampa Bay Rays home opener right now, so if you hear some crowd noise, it's not real.
Thanks a lot, man. We appreciate you coming on the show tonight. So obviously, you were the first guy on the scene. You had that camera footage of Tom Brady arriving. The beginning was kind of funny. It looks like he was asking for his ID or something like that, and he just kind of looked at him, took out his AirPod, and was like, "I'm Tom Brady." So how did you know that he was? Were you just there early? Did you have like a tip off of what time he might be showing up?
Well, first of all, it wasn't me that shot that. I was actually off. I had a tip off, and I relayed it to our newsroom. And we got a guy out there, and I was kind of told to stand at this spot, the best view. And I told to the photographer we had out there, and I was like, he got it. So it was great work. It was a perfect shot, perfect location, and the tip came in perfectly.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. I know a lot of fans too. They know Tom Brady's here, but to see him show up at One Bucks Place, it kind of made it really real for them. And I know it made me excited just seeing him there with the stadium kind of in the background, him talking to Coach Clyde Christensen afterwards. What were your thoughts when you heard that, hey, Tom Brady is coming to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Well, it's really funny because I moved down here for a job. I started on March 2nd. I came from Birmingham, Alabama. And my friends, I covered Alabama and Auburn for years. I went to 9 national championship games. So now you're going to go to a mediocre a team with a city with a mediocre team, and they're kind of ribbing me for that. And then a month later, we get Tom Brady. Then we get Rob Gronkowski. Now they're kind of eating their words right now, but it's really kind of surreal for a city like Tampa to have a player of that magnitude. I mean, they brought him in here not just because of all the wins he has, the 6 championships. They brought him in here because he doesn't turn the ball over. That's the biggest thing. And in the past, the Buccaneers have been the best team in the league at beating themselves with, I think, leading the league in interceptions, turnovers, and penalties last year. And Tom should clean some of that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the way he gets the ball out of his hands quicker, and his decision making, I think, will really help improve this team, especially the offensive line, where they might have looked a little, worse for wear last year. I think just him being here will kind of improve that situation there. I don't know if you had a chance. I know you're covering the game. Did you check out the NFL and NFLPA's deal that they've made? Have you heard about that?
I saw a pop-up that did come through. I haven't had a chance to really dive into it yet. Like I said, I've been covering the Rays right now. They're trailing 6-3. But, I saw it. It is going through, and we will have some football this year.
Yeah,
from the notifications I've been getting.
Yeah, it's amazing because there's so much, worry and strife about it, with the testing, and then they finally got that done. And then out of nowhere, it seemed like the league was put on pause because of financial, restrictions. So now that they've got that over there, now we can really concentrate on going forward and on, what's going to come next. The testing protocols. Did you, what do you have? What are your thoughts on those? Do you agree with the way they're structured and everything like that, or?
Well, that was really the biggest concern for players when they had these social media blasts a couple of days ago, all of them reaching out on Twitter and Facebook saying, why would we come back to work when you don't have anything in place yet? Again, I haven't really had a chance to read everything that's gone into it yet because I've been occupied with the Rays. But it's good to hear that something is in place now and that players can finally have that sense of relief that they can get back to work and do it safely.
Exactly. And one of the big things, that's been kind of held up was the rookies signing their deals. It looks like they've all agreed, and, barring negative tests, they will report on Monday to sign their contracts and be official members. Which rookie that we drafted really stood out to you, and which one are you most excited to see for this team and think that can help improve them the most?
Defensively is where they really need help, and Antoine Winfield back in the secondary could really help. I was actually down here for the Outback Bowl and got to see Tyler Johnson just ball out from Minnesota against Auburn. And, man, he was impressive. But Bucks have their wealth of riches in wide receivers. But secondary is where they really needed that help. And Winfield could be a difference maker early on with the secondary. It's got 3 guys that are really coming on this past year. I mean, for the secondary, it's like a tale of 2 seasons for these guys. I mean, the first 10 weeks, they were awful. I think they gave up like 65% passing completions. And then that week 10 through 17, those three guys really improved from Bunting to Davis, Dean. But back end help, I think that's going to be the really big key for the Bucs. I mean, you can't forget Tristan Wirfs. You got to keep Tom Brady upright, and I mean, he should be a good playmaker. It's just the fact that he hadn't had that off season to really get into the playbook for these rookies.
Exactly. Were there any undrafted rookies that you've kind of seen that kind of sparked your eye as well? I mean, I've had Reed Sinnett, Javon Hagan, Nick Leverett, a couple other guys on here.
Josh Pearson, a wide receiver from Jacksonville State. Man, he's impressive. He really didn't start playing football until, I want to say, maybe his junior year of college. He had some little off the field issues, couldn't get on the field. But when he got on the field, he had 32 touchdowns in his final 2 years at Jacksonville State, and the kid's built like a rock. He's athletic, doesn't have the height, but I mean, he'll outwork you. He's a good guy to keep an eye on. I would expect him to be a practice squad guy with mentioned all the wide receivers they have already, but Josh Pearson's a really good player. And I mean, I was impressed they were able to get him. I was surprised he didn't get taken late in the draft. I talked to him after he got signed. He said there was a couple teams talking to him. He said the Bucs really wanted to draft him, but they traded the pick that they wanted to draft him with. So they said, hang tight, we'll sign you after.
Yeah, and he's another one of those small school specialties that Jason Leck likes to bring in.
Yeah.
I looked at him too. He looks like, he could be an amazing player. A couple of the guys, Michael Divinity Jr. out of LSU kind of went surprisingly undrafted as well as.
Yeah, you mentioned Reed Sinnett's a good kid too. I did a few interviews with him. He's the pocket passer. He can move out. He can move. He's not just going to stand there. He can move if he needs to. I mean, he's a really smart kid, and he really exploded in that really one year he really got on the field out there in San Diego.
I think he had the top efficiency in the whole league, the whole country. So definitely smart with the ball, which is something that was desperately needed here. Speaking of the wide receivers, Chris Godwin is not getting the love I think he deserves. Any reason why you can think of why he's not getting the respect around the league?
I don't know. I mean, he had an unbelievable season last year. What Madden rating? Madden didn't even give him
87. Not even the top 10.
He might be better. I mean, he's up there with Mike Evans. I mean, he's I think one of the perfect receivers for Tom Brady, just because of the way he plays. I mean, he has the intermediate to short passing game, and that's kind of where he can stick around. And I think that's what Brady might rely on here without this training camp. He'll rely on what Brady has been experienced doing with the Tampa Bay offense, the three-step drops. I mean, Godwin's such a sure-handed player. I mean, I don't know why he's not getting the love. I mean, there's a lot of players in this Bucs team that don't get the love they should. I mean, look on the defense.
Levante, David,
linebackers, and no one talks about them.
Yeah, it's crazy. Speaking of that, the defense, what are your expectations for both the offense and defense? Do you think they're going to be a high-scoring unit? Do you think they're going to be a ground and pound, kind of run the clock out? And the defense, do you see more turnovers, more sacks? What do you see out of them?
I was debating what kind of offense we're going to see, if we're going to see the high-scoring offense, but I realized last year we saw a high-scoring offense because the defense wasn't good. Now the defense is good, so maybe the offense will dial it back a little bit, get their points, then grind out the clock. So maybe a low-scoring team. I don't know. It's going to be a good team whichever way they want to play it. But offensively, they can probably do whatever they want. I mean, they got the best tight ends in the league, arguably the best wide receivers in the league. We'll figure out what's going on with the running back. We don't know who's going to get the start there, if it's Jones or Vaughn or Dari Ungabwale.
Tongue twister, that one.
But it's going to be a fun offense. It definitely is. As long as they can keep Tom Brady upright. I mean, he should have plenty of time to throw, and he's got the weapons to do it with. Defense will improve this year. I'm fairly confident saying that. I think they have the best linebacker core in the league with the guys we've mentioned already, with David and Barrett. It's a good team, and the secondary we talked about before. They'll improve. They've got guys last year only 1 or 2 years of experience. They improved the last half of the season. So this is going to be a good team. I mean, the expectations should be Super Bowl. I mean, why else would Brady and Gronk come here? It's Super Bowl bust for this team, and it's just kind of disappointing that we won't have a packed house every weekend for fans to watch it.
I know, right? The 1 year, they sell basically of all their season tickets, and there won't be as reported as at least full capacity at the stadium. So hope with the Super Bowl in Tampa at that too. So obviously we heard the news Shaq Barrett signed his tender. They didn't come to a long-term extension, which is, I know a lot of fans. I was hoping they came to an agreement like they did it in Baltimore with Matt Judon, where, they kind of met in the middle. He filed his grievance. That way it gives him the flexibility to sign a long-term deal. Do you see Shaq Barrett staying here long-term? And if you had to choose between Levante David and Shaq Barrett, which one would you go with?
Oh, I mean, I think he's the older player, correct? So he's
2 years,
older. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, then you got Devin White already on his second year. Gosh, it's such a good linebacker core. I mean, I don't – history suggests Barrett's not going to do what he did before. I mean, 19.5 sacks. You don't think that's going to happen again. As long as he can keep getting pressure on the quarterback, that's what's really going to help this team. But, I mean, it's like for the Bucs, it's like, okay, so they don't pay him this year. They're gambling on the future. If he doesn't do as good of like he did the previous year, they can get him cheaper. But if he does better, then you're probably going to lose him because someone's going to pay higher. Yeah. It's a tough spot for him, but I think it's the right decision for the Bucs to franchise him, see if he can do it again. Because I mean, I don't want to say it's a fluke year, but man, it was a really good year, and it's really highly unlikely it's going to be repeated. Yeah,
and you'll have JPP hopefully back healthy for the full season. Todd Bowles said Vita Vea's going to play a lot more snaps, and we saw he was, sixth in pressures last year, almost an arm's reach away from sacks. Devin White fully healthy for the year. So I do see those numbers, dropping as well as you. So you're at the Rays game. How's that going? I hear the crowd noise in the back. Is that weird? Are the cutouts weird? Is that something we're going to expect at NFL games, you think?
Yeah, the cutouts aren't here yet. They're still – they got to have people take the pictures. They got to make them. They were telling me not this homestand, but next week they should have the cutouts here. But if you're watching the game on TV, I think it looks normal with the sound. But if you're at the stadium, it's just really weird. You hear the sound is empty, completely empty. You can hear the chatter on the field. I feel like really like special that I am one of the few people who actually gets to watch Major League Baseball players in person. It's a cool feeling. It's different. But yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be a fun season though, because this Rays team is really good. I mean, they're a really fun team to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just to wrap up the interview, thank you again for your time. Predictions on this Buccaneers team. Where do you see them landing in the division and the conference, and possibly a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think it's a 10-win team. Yeah. They hit 10, and I think the Saints will again get the division. It's one of those things like the Falcons. The Falcons are always the wild card. You don't know what the Falcons are going to do. Yeah. If they're people are kind of down on them, they have a good year. If people are high on them, then they just kind of sink to the bottom. I honestly don't have much confidence in the Panthers this year, but I think it's a 3-team race, and I think it's the Saints, Bucs at 10 wins, and the Falcons will be somewhere in between there.
Do you think they can, they're a deep playoff team, Super Bowl possibly, or where do you have them? Yeah, I know it's early. It's but
yeah, this is this team's gonna make a run. I think just with the experience with Brady, that's why they brought him in here for this locker room. Not only what he does on the field, but yeah, this is a Super Bowl team. I don't want to say Super Bowl champions yet. I want to see what they look like.
Absolutely.
But no, this is going to be a good team, and you shouldn't expect anything better than at least a playoff. Look at the playoff run here. I mean, they'll if it's not a playoff, what are we doing?
Absolutely. I definitely agree with you. Well, thank you so much for your time, Cal Berger from ABC Action News. He's at the Rays game right now, so make sure you look out for his reports. I'm sure he's active on Twitter. Tell him where they can find you on Twitter.
Yeah, that's at Kyle_Berger. So Kyle Lineberger.
Yeah, check him out. He's always got good content on there. And thank you so much for your time. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, Joshua.
Have a good one. So there you go. You have, local media, ABC, Kyle Berger giving us some great insight. We're going to finish up with The Drive. The Drive is actually sponsored to you by Down and Dirty Pressure Washing and COVID-19 Sanitation. They're family-owned and operated using eco-friendly products serving the Hillsborough County, Pasco, and Pinellas counties. Mention Bucks Report and get $20 off of your first service. Call 813-957-5243 for a free estimate Also, if you own a daycare within 10 miles of Temple Terrace, please reach out to him because he's offering free sanitations to 5 local daycares 10 miles of the Temple Terrace area. So if you know someone who owns a daycare or you yourself owns a daycare, make sure you reach out to him. He's offering you a great service. Obviously, he's doing that out of the kindness of his heart. It's something that, we should be grateful for. More people should be doing it. It's nice to see. So let's just go to our drive home. We're going to bring it up with the NFLPA deal. So football is back, baby. We have it, it's unless something crazy happens, multiple positive testing, we're going to have football back. I'm very excited. We've all heard from the different reports coming out there that first off it was the testing protocols got done, and then there were reports that it might shut down over financial issues. Now that the financial issues are done, we can just sit back, wait for these tests to come in, and hopefully we have a lot of negative tests. I mean, I'm sure we'll pop up some positive, but hopefully the Buccaneers all test negative, and training camp will start and get underway as soon as August 30th, because we'll have to wait the 72 hours. So then you'll have everybody in there. The first 20 days of training camp will be just, strength and conditioning. The next 15 days will be walkthroughs in, shells and helmets, no contact. And then the next 15 days will be, fully padded practices. There will be no 11-on-11s. And obviously we spoke, there'll be no preseason games. That kind of makes me nervous. I don't know how you're supposed to get ready for an opponent if you can't really, throw an 11-on-11 scrimmage between teams there. I know it's for the safety and the health of players, but without that firsthand, especially for these rookies, without that firsthand experience of going up against, a full team, they'll still be able to do 7-on-7s. I get that, but it just won't be the same. And then to expect Tristan Wirfs to go out there on the right side, and then you throw against the Saints, and then you throw Cameron Jordan, does a stunt, comes on the right side. I don't care who you are and how talented you are. That's pretty intimidating for one of your first NFL snaps. So I kind of wish that they had more time in pads and 11-on-11s, but it's all about the player safety, and that's what's most important. We spoke about this defense, thoroughly with the secondary. We just spoke about it. I think this defense, I'm going to call it now, will be a top 5 defense. They're already number 1 against the rush last year, and the secondary really came on. Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis were top 5 in pass breakups last year. A couple more of those could have been interceptions. The Tom Brady effect fully takes over control too, because he will not throw as many interceptions, which will mean the defense will not be on the field as much, which means that they'll be more rested when they come out. They'll be more, have the more ability to play it at a good playing speed instead of being winded. Second year in Todd Bowles' system, he's a coach that really allows these players to kind of freelance and do what they, do best. So you'll see them, being able to be more aggressive on the ball. I'm excited about that. Again, it's not too late too for this prize pack I'm going to be sending out next week. Comment on YouTube, retweet on Twitter, or share on Facebook. Make sure if you are sharing, please make sure that it's public so that we can see. Again, congratulations to Christopher Cole on the Doug Martin photo from last week. Please message me. I'll get that out to you. We'll read some comments and then wrap it up. Again, thank you guys for coming out. Where do we stop here? Bucks will sign Dalvin Cook. I would love Dalvin Cook, and I think a lot of people were upset that they took O.J. Howard over Dalvin Cook. But Dalvin Cook is from the area and, had a little bit of off-field issues. And I think that if they would have brought him in, he might not have had the time to mature. Now that he's in Minnesota, I think he'll be a more mature player if he comes down here. Again, it always depends on Rojo and Vaughn's presence and what they do. Stunt says the Washington football team. What an amazing name. I know I didn't get to touch on that because our guest came on. It seems like, a good opportunity for them for marketing, because this is going to be a 1-year thing, most likely. It gives them time to come up with a name and color and the logo that, that everyone can kind of have a part of, the fans, the team, the players. So, I mean, it's a good idea. Obviously, it's a little bland. I think the uniforms are very sharp. I like the numbers on the side. Some people think they're a little collegey, but I like them. Sam Salib, looking great, brother. Thanks a lot, man. Stunting is stunting. Wow, Joshua got more creative interviews than ESPN. got to bring the guys on. He was live at the Rays game right now, covering the Rays opening day game. That's pretty cool. You could hear the crowd noise in the back. If you're watching on TV, you can hear it as well. You heard them playing music in between the innings and stuff like that. So it's definitely going to be weird waiting to see what they do with football. Basketball, you hear them. They have the music going on in the background. Not so much fake crowd noise, but just some music. It kind of looks like they're in a gym. I really like the court, the setup of it. I think that's the court they'll be using going forward. But hey, it's what you got to do in this time. And I'd rather watch these sports with fake crowd noise and cutout fans and not have them at all. Stunting is stunting. Joshua signing with ESPN. Maybe one day in the future, not now. I'm very happy at Buck Support with my team and family here. Johnny Dean live from the Rays press box. You know it, Johnny Dean. Johnny Dean. So you got him on asking for a Rays update. He gave us a 6-3. I didn't ask him for a Rays update because I knew you were on, Johnny Dean, and it's boring ball. I don't want to bore you with that. Happy you're in here to support me, buddy. Johnny, it's 3-2. Oh, never mind. It's 6-3. Stunting. We are losing, says Stunting. Johnny, I thought you didn't like baseball. Johnny does not like baseball. Joshua, what's your thoughts on Brady getting tested? There's some reports that he didn't have a mask on or was half on when he came out, and he was talking to some of the coaches, Coach Clyde Christensen. He had a mask on. He took a picture of his mask on. I'm glad he's getting tested. I hope everyone gets tested and they all come back negative, because if they're all negative, that means there's no holdups for training camp to start on time. No one has to quarantine. No one has to go through all that, and we can just jump right in and get as many days as we can together as a team, which they obviously need. So that's what I'm hoping everything comes back negative. And what's your thoughts on the media disrespecting him and slandering him? I saw that by PFT. They came out and, kind of disrespected him there. Some other people, disrespecting him because his delayed response on the players that came out this past weekend saying, we want to play. And he said he stands by the NFL players. And, Pro Football Talk, pretty much said, this is the same guy who is, running workouts against the NFLPA's recommendation, and now he wants to talk on how he's with them. I just think it's a slow time right now, so people are going to write about anything that's clickable. Stun, pretty biased articles. Yeah, like I said, I don't get it, because Russell Wilson was out there, Jimmy Garoppolo, multitude of players, but they're just going to single him out. I don't understand it. Craig Badu, Josh, please remember what I posted last Wednesday. Gotcha. Don't forget, if you are a daycare within 10 miles of Temple Terrace, my man Craig Badorf and Down and Dirty Pressure Washing, we'll do a free COVID sanitation for you guys. So make sure you check them out for sure. James McGinnis, great interview with Kyle. Thanks, Pop. Appreciate you. Taylor Jean, hi, Dad. What's up, babe? Wink for you. Johnny Dean says, stunting is stunting. I do hate baseball, but when you have a tiger on the line, you don't ask them about the hippo. You let them live in their environment. Yeah, we mostly have him on, as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers analyst, because he covers them too. He was at the Rays Stadium, and we did ask him about that, but I wasn't going to make the whole show about that. This is a Bucs show. Craig Bador says it's a one-time service, so check that out. His prices are very reasonable, so if you want to have it again, obviously get in touch with him. My mom, love you, Josh. Love you too. Ishmael Amaro, dude, you are great and glad to be able to watch this. Thank you. That's my guy, Wolf the Barber. Remember, if you want a fresh cut like me, he's over in Almighty Cuts in Brandon. Buck Support, $5 off your first cut. He does amazing work. He does great work with kids. My son's 4 years old, and he lets him use a straight blade on him. He just makes you feel comfortable. He's got a new clothing line coming out. Make sure you check him out. It might be a little bit of a hike for you. I'm up in Lutz. I drive 40 minutes to see him, because once you find a good barber, they're hard to find. I would highly recommend him. Definitely go check him out. So that's going to wrap up the show for me tonight. I want to give a big thanks to Kyle Berger, my guest, my advertisers, Wolf the Barber, Pewter Plumbing, Malectronic, Auction of Champions, Down and Dirty Power Washing, promos for you behind me. Remember, keep it right here. Each one of these contest prizes will get an official, if you can see that, I don't know, you can, the Audible bottle opener with my name and logo on there. So that's pretty cool. Keep it right here. The Sports Web with Peter Blake is going to be up next. You don't want to miss that. He's got some exciting things coming up. We have, some special guests that are going to be permanent parts on Thursday. I'll let him tell you about that, but keep it right here for that. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching the Audible. I know we've had some ups and downs the last couple of weeks, with show times. Hopefully we'll be back to normal time on Wednesday. Trying to figure out the intro and outro. There's been some issues with that, but we'll get it back up and running, and just keep it right here for the Audible every Wednesday night, hopefully going forward, live here on Bucs Report. I'm Joshua Cole Allen, the host of the Audible. Make sure you tune back in because you won't want to miss a play. Thanks a lot, guys.